Hello to you all. I was thinking last week after I finished, last week, and I wanted a good topic for this Sunday. It turns out I got a pretty fun topic to cover and discuss. It will trail off of my last segment of how to navigate a bad trip. And I'm going to share with you what I did over the weekend, and I'm going to go over what I learned through doing two back-to-back, very fairly intensive mushroom ceremonies. So Ashley specifically asked me to make sure that I touch on the key elements of preparing, the preparation stages, the intentions, and how to. The biggest thing that again that we've spoken about, but I'm going to get into a lot more details from my own personal experience. Why setting set and intention are so important, especially your physical surroundings and environment. And the truth is that we become our environment. And if we are in a state where our mind is going to meld and ingrain what's around us into our consciousness and our psyche. A, we want the best environment that we can have. B, we also want to make sure that we're safe. C, it affects the trip differently. And I think sometimes when your setting is off and you're just doing it on a whim or you're doing it in a really boring, plain environment, it definitely affects what you experience to the point where you might not experience much of anything. I've experimented a little bit. Some people spoke openly about wanting like a dark room, alone in a dark room, because then you can do anything and see, whatever your mind wants to show you without it being interrupted or influenced by what's around you, because if what's around you is just darkness, then, obviously that's always there. Personally, I like outside. I like bright, vibrant colors, nature, and because everything's just enhanced. And the truth is, if you're in a bad environment, you're going to then get an enhanced bad environment, which just saying that obviously doesn't sound very therapeutic. So, without further ado, I had some soul searching to do over the last few days. Had some very serious life altering internal decisions. And I decided that the best way to do it would be to free myself of everything else around me, put my mind at ease, kind of like taking a day off, but it's taking a day off from being yourself, not just being yourself on a day off. My preparation for the first part of the ritual came with my fireplace. I always set a fire and I do a meditation over it. And I found may not be for everybody. It's my personal go-to at the moment. I'm going to show you here on YouTube. There is Om monk chanting, kind of a little ominous, to be honest. 417 hertz. And it's supposed to remove all negative blockages. No, I do not want commercial. So I set my fireplace. I set my music. And I put this fairly loud, put on all TVs and phones, so I have different areas of the house all going at once, and that way it doesn't really matter where I wander to. From here, I make my tea. I make sure I have everything with me, including, and I'm going to show you this. This is pretty cool. Bob and Sarah. Bob and Sarah. This, where are we? Enhances dreaming, and it also enhances what you're taking, which, when you're up into several grams of psilocybin, seemed like a good idea at the time, and I'm certainly not disappointed. My intention for the first one was wanted to see what the mushrooms wanted to show me. Firstly, this trip took place, it started to kick in about 20 minutes in, which I only ever experience on higher dosages. Usually, I don't feel anything for about 2 hours. And I decided further with my intention that I was going to work on my physical body. And what came across was balance. It occurred to me on a very deep level why they always show you in movies people meditating, monks and whatnot, and they're, on logs and they have one foot on each log and they're doing almost like the split. So they're balanced on one foot. And I experienced that when your body is in these physically awkward states of being, what ends up happening is your mind goes into a trance to hold yourself there. When this started to kick in, I did switch the music up and I put on jungle rainforest. It was really beautiful. What I experienced after having the intention of knowing myself, getting to know my body, control over my body, and specifically, I guess to be really open, is I was seeking the intention of communication, being able to control the words that I use in text and writing, and being able to be quick with my verbal responses. And And so the first thing that happened, and I'm going to get very open and I'm going to get very, very personal about both these trips because I feel it's important for people to understand how these experiences take place. And it is different for everybody. No one trip has ever been the same. No lesson or experience has ever even replicated itself. It's always been very different. And in this particular case, what I noticed is that this was the continuation from my heroic journey back in August, back around my birthday. And because I was in front of the fireplace, it was the fire element that was teaching me and guiding me. Once the experience begins, you will get inclinations of what to do next. And I had a whole list of things that I wanted to do. Poetry that I wanted to write, songs that I was going to make, a song I've been making for Ashley since like 6 months ago when I started composing it on my piano. I had things that I wanted to make and do, and then when the experience started, none of it mattered because I saw the flaw in how I was wasting my time. So my intention was set for physical control over my body, getting to know myself, and a communication piece. And what came across was my actions, the physical, what am I doing? The last part of my intention before really getting into the details of what happened is, and this is an ongoing journey for me, is that I really want to experience the shamanic experience. I want to touch the universe. I want to connect with God and with everything essentially, which is interesting because by the end of day two, that did take place in a unique, rather manner. So your body relaxes, and you end up doing these natural yoga positions just on intuition. Your body will just get stiff and you'll want to stretch and just move. And movement is very important, especially when you are going through this kind of experience. Especially because with my personal experiences, you run the risk of falling asleep and then you just miss out on everything if you lose control of yourself in that manner. And sometimes in the past, we feel the spiritual pressure of the baggage and the weights that we carry around with us. And it's like gravity, it just pins you to the floor. It becomes very hard to move. That's one of the signs that I've experienced if your trip is starting to go south or headed into a negative direction. And the other thing that I'd like to divulge to all of you going forward, before I get into too many details, is that this is still new to me. I'm very green to cannabis. I'm very new to the psychedelic nature of using these plant medicines for a healing basis. I have studied spirituality, spirit science, demonology, different religions, chakras, auras, Chinese bits and pieces of Chinese medicine for 15 years. And I was able to have a fairly good path in life. Everybody's path is different, and we've all experienced some really horrendous moments. And no one moment is worse than the other. It's really just a matter of perspective. And frankly, it's not even fair to compare somebody's bad day to somebody else's bad day. Being able to be in the position where these medicines are being presented to me for healing nature has been so incredibly therapeutic. Beforehand, I was able to just working with Ashley on a basic level through food nutrition and the other programs that she's offered. I cured myself of anxiety and depression um, 3 years ago when I first met Ashley and started to work with her in general as a client. What remained in my life was pain management systems, injuries, long lasting injuries that I've had my whole life: shoulder dislocations, migraines, severe crippling, put in the hospital, you're left drooling on the floor in pain and unable to move kind of pain, migraines. And I used to get these kind of things like every 3 days. And the amount of Advil and Tylenol and painkillers that are stockpiled around my house were stockpiled around my house. I still have a few in a box in a basement, but it got ridiculous. And I had suffered horrible insomnia until I went through the integration process. And I really took it that extra step further because there was so much that I could do on my own through meditation and positive mindset work. And some of these monks and people who practice this their whole life, they become an old sage, an old master, a grandmaster. And some of the best grandmasters in the world have admitted only once did I ever have full control of my mind and body, and it only lasted about 7 seconds. Working with these plant medicines increases um, that time frame, so you don't need a lifetime of practice to get to that peace of mind, that acceptance of letting go. And I can't even explain to you how my mindset is so different now versus 3, 4 days ago. And so I encourage all of you to take what I say here seriously, and I'm going to share two heroic journeys back to back, or one longer heroic journey. Usually you're supposed to take weeks to months before you do another large trip. And the thing is, I didn't plan the second trip, it's what called to me at the time. So I started this trip. My cards that I read in the dice divination that I do prepared me to let me know that good things are happening in my life. And the thing is, good things are goodening. Things are goodening to the goodeningness. Things are going very well for me on all fronts. And I felt that it was a really good period of time to do this kind of an experience. And the truth is, I know that if you have something playing on your mind or in your subconscious that you are aware of, that's going to be the most relevant thing that goes on during the trip. And the best way to avoid that is to be at peace of mind. Your internal set, you, and where you're at when you start. You are manic, and I know this sounds like a bit of a paradox here or something, but if you're really manic depressed and you're really not set and you're having a really bad day, the kind of day that people would go and just drink or something, that's really the worst thing that you can do if you're going to use these kind of medicines. You really need to put in the work and the effort to have a safe setting, have a plan, have things laid out. Like I said, I made a list of things to do. And during the experience, none of it mattered because my mind wasn't in the right place where the mushrooms wanted me to be. So I had some time to myself, completely alone and isolated for a few days. Dosage, if anybody's, I mean, it was a large dose. That's pretty much what there is to it. When the yoga started, when your body relaxes and you just want to stretch and you feel like you're growing because everything's relaxing. And memes will show you that that's like the naked yoga stage of a mushroom. And I found that as I was looking at things, everything has happy faces and the world is smiling at you and everything has this beautiful golden hue, which is great. And I just relaxed. I curled up into a little ball and I started to understand how your mind looks at things and starts to portray them as snakes. Like when I was coiled up and I had my same sweater I'm wearing right now on, and my hoodie, and I'm coiled up on the floor and I see these strings and they became snakes. And another, again, what I was saying the last time, last Sunday, a really important element to avoiding a bad trip is to understand what you're looking at and how your brain is responding. I'm always aware that what I am seeing is not specifically real because I know where I am. It's not like being drunk where you just forget what's going on and black out and then you don't remember. The beautiful thing is you remember all of it. Sometimes it's a bit fuzzy and you gotta sit and force yourself to remember a bit. But regardless, I hatched from an egg. Essentially, as I unrolled from a ball, it to me was being hatched from an egg, and I was reborn. And I was reborn part snake, part frog, and I had the rainforest music on in the background. And as I stood up and I looked around, I knew that I was in a new life. I knew that I could then create through affirmations, through this mindset work, the world and the universe that I want. And there is an imagination to it. And by the end of this trip, what came to me was it's a very similar mindset to being a small child, like Rugrats, if anybody remembers that show, where to you, it's just a kid under a table, but the kid under the table, they're like in this cavern of wonders with these stalactites coming down, and your mind just makes things what they are and what they can be. And the first thing that I realized is the concept of the looking glass. And that to me, during the experience, when I would make a portal with my hand or with my hood um, and whatnot, everything beyond the looking glass became what my intention wanted it to be. So I created a beautiful world and I took the time to go through everything that I want. And I don't have time to go over all that. So I'm trying to cover probably 9 hours of material in detail in about 30 minutes left. So I stood up and I looked around the house and I saw that I truly do have everything that I have longed for, and it is here with me. I have a chalkboard that has all our names on it. And it's interesting because I was doing story writing with Anastasia, and on the board had all our names. So when I'm in this beautiful place, this peaceful peace of mind, and I'm just looking for a world of bliss, and I stand up and I look at the environment around me, and I have rainbows and colorful pictures that the kids have drawn everywhere. I have this chalkboard that says everything in your life is right here: Ashley, Finn, Anastasia, you. And it was just so humbling and so beautiful to be reminded of that on a deep subconscious level. My phone wants to randomly pause and not play my chanty music. That's okay. And so, like a kid in the house using their imagination, I toured the house. I was guided. Each room had something to show me about life and about where I'm at and what I've accomplished, what I achieved. And every room had something special. Every room has an answer to a question. And similar, very similar to how it's portrayed in a video game where you are just in a room with a whole bunch of things to click on and interact with. Each one gives you a different message. And likely from 22 fucking years of video games, that's kind of what was playing out in my mind. And I saw very clearly what I need to do, how I can make business better, how I can be a better father, how I can be better to everybody that I love. And when I was cooking food, I realized that kind of like when you have a crystal and you enchant it and you make it like a positivity stone or you make it a protection stone. I really like listening to it nonstop for days. I need it. And your food becomes like this positivity stone that you make. And Ashley's always said this from day one: when you're preparing food, the mood that you're in, the emotional vibration that you're on, is what's going to get infused into it. And the truth is, everything in life has this. And if you want something, the message that was given to me is that you can create it. And if you don't know how to create it, the concept of journaling, which is when you're putting the words on paper, you're creating a vision of it. And because you put it together in words, because you put the energy and the effort into making something that makes sense, this concept now exists in reality because it's on that piece of paper. If you have things that you don't want in you and you want to give them away, but you don't know what to do with them, in the book Spirit Bear, Touching Spirit Bear, they go through this ritual of every morning they wake up, they go up a big hill and they carry this heavy ass rock, roll it up the hill, they can't lift it. And then they, like when you're kneading bread and you just touch something and you push it and you're putting your energy and your physical pressure into it, they push the rock, they push their anger, it's their anger stone, they push it all away and the thing goes tumbling down the hill. And I like this concept as a basic exercise for mindset work because what was shown to me is it's a very powerful tool to use. And at one point, I ventured into the basement and I have a training area set up for martial arts, for sparring, boxing, and whatnot. And my punching bag became this anger stone. It became a physical spot where I can just expel the negativity and get rid of it. And it stays in the punching bag, safe and secure. And that way it doesn't get projected onto anybody else. Through the house. Yeah, every room had a different answer. Every room had a different lesson. came across to me at this point is that we physically need to touch something for it to exist. And again, by putting it on paper, by making it into words or song, think of how many songs have touched people. Songs and the recording artists and some of these things have been gone for decades, decades, 10 centuries, 100, gone for decades. Elvis still touches people to this day. People ingrain who he was into them because of what he did and the physical things that he made and crafted. Furniture is around for sometimes centuries. Houses are around. What we make physically put together with our hands and our tools is how we make things real. And at this point, I realized how much of the world doesn't actually exist. You can't touch it. It's on a TV screen. It's in a phone. It's in a video game. It's not a real car that you're racing. It's not a real scenario. It's like these things don't exist. It makes me sad that the things that I want to exist need to be created. And it was a very big opening for me on a creative level because I went through this day. As I said, I made it very physical about controlling my body. There was yoga, stretches, exercise, fighting techniques on the punching bag, sparring techniques. And at the end of it all, I understood that I was physically okay. My root chakra is very secure physically with my existence and my ability to stay alive. And that's not where my mind should be at. And when I looked at the page of everything I had to do, it was all based off physical survival. And then I realized what's really missing are those things that help my senses feel happy, feel safe and secure. And when you're in your environment, that's all you have in life is the sanctuary to retreat to that keeps you safe and it keeps you alive. The integration process to me was about taking care of my home. It was about making sure that this is the happiest, healthiest place for children and my loved ones to thrive in so that they can create what they want in life and spend their life doing it. It was very important. I understood the concept of a house as a whole Zen garden. And I had never had that connection to a home or living space before. I've always really just kind of been that basic, yeah, food, water, and warmth. You're good. You're okay. But without the extras, without the things that you can touch, the warmth. Water keeps you alive, but a nice warm tea, something that nourishes you and helps you grow and heals and is a medicine. It merges the chakras beyond the root chakra and it gets into that pleasure center because you're again happy, healthy, you have that pleasure, you have the motivation to continue to do what you're doing and to add to it, to live the life that you want to be living. So by the end of the day, I went to bed. I felt like I was a kid who had just been left alone in the house for the very first time. And it's like, oh my god, I can do anything I want. And then at the end of the day, it's like, well, there isn't actually anything here to do. There isn't anything here that I want because I haven't created it yet. I need to be more creative. I need to be more constructive. I can cook, I'm good with food. There's things that I can do. And the thing is, my skills are kind of around tech. Video editing and making more things that don't actually exist from previous things that also didn't exist. I mean, picture of something that something exists, but it's different. I see things very differently in the sense of reality. And the fact that if you can't touch it, if it's not in your home, it doesn't serve you. And it really doesn't exist. And the thing is, people have so many things in their home that they never touch, and they never use. And it's not helping their survival, and it's not actually making them feel warm and fuzzy, and it doesn't really give them motivation to keep doing what they're doing. Things just take up space. But as I was going through this moment earlier on, when I was kind of like a frog snake and just touching everything to feel it, and I realized that the core concept of being alive as a baby is we just want to touch everything. We want to touch everything we want to put in our mouth. We want to know what we can touch. We want to know what we can eat. We want to know what's going to keep us alive and what's not going to. It's, again, binary, which I mentioned before. It's very on or off. And I realized that kind of the purpose of life, if you explain it to a 5-year old in a way that they can understand it, is the purpose of life is to touch and experience as many things as possible in your lifetime. We want to travel. We want to go to different places. We want to touch new things. We don't want borders. We don't want boundaries. We don't want motherfucking masks and mandates and stipulations. We just want to be. And like a child, that's really cool over there. I want to go over there and look at it. And we want to collect. This is where the hoarding comes in. We want to touch everything at once and have it all with us at once. And we forget what's actually important. We just want to live and grow. And the more things that we can touch while we're alive, the longer that we get to stay alive. The more diversity, the more life force that we eat from plants and animals. Everything that we consume is alive. Because if we stop consuming life, we die. It's that straightforward and simple. So we always need more. We always need to be touching something else. We always need to be becoming one with something else. And I felt this connection to people that there always has to be another one of us. So our legacy, our growth can keep going on and keep touching and keep growing. So at the end of the day, I was laying in my bed, and throughout these trips, you have waves. You have waves of lucidity, you have waves of stimulation, and you will have waves of in between where things don't actually make sense. And to be very honest and very open, there were at least 5 different times where the trip started to go south. And it's very important to be able to recognize it and to be able to acknowledge I'm freaking out right now. I need to sit down. I need to go on the floor, curl up into a little ball, and just breathe. And relax. That relaxation piece that you get at the beginning of how to just let your body flop and do those different yoga poses. A very important lesson for my nervous system is how to maintain that point of being relaxed while you're freaking out, because then you stop freaking out. Anybody ever cry so hard they give themselves a migraine? It used to be me all the time. One of the reasons growing up I never let myself express or feel emotions because the sinus pressure would just give me another migraine on top of all the other fucking things that I had in the first place. So being able to breathe, cry, express these emotions, and they just detox out of you. You sweat and you cry, and the negativity just goes out, and you're cleansed. I'm gonna try to say this for the third time because it is very personal to me. However, I'm here to help you all go through the same thing. At the end of the day, when I was laying in my bed, what occurred to me and what went through my mind was all the times as a child that I was sexually exploited, all the times that I had been in very inappropriate environments with inappropriate people. And I felt that shame and I felt that grief and I felt that guilt. But the thing is, at this point, it doesn't stay. It's not like you feel something and you take it in as a part of you and you're like, I'm going to hold on to this for other fucking ever. Because I understood from my trip, from this experience, that we have to be touching something for it to exist. So what do I mean by this? So people nowadays, they get it in their head that I don't like something. I don't like this candle. It insulted me. And then they carry it with them. Did you hear about this candle? It insulted me. Did you report it? I reported this candle. You should report the candle too, because it's an insulting candle. And people will say to you, why don't you just put the candle down? Because if I put the candle down, I can't hate it. If you stop touching something you hate, you can't hate it anymore. And there's something about it that we carry in ourselves that we want to. It's like, it's because you can't detox, you can't let it go. Literally, you can't put it down. And I remembered how ridiculous of a concept that was of thinking about everybody if they're physically holding the thing that they hate, if it's a person, if it's a job, if it's a place, a thing, a Trump, a Trudeau, whatever, you know, they just carry it with them all the time to tell everybody how much I fucking hate this thing. Doesn't make much sense, does it? Going forward, I understood why it's so important to only surround yourself and only touch the positivity and what you want in your life, what you want in your home, what you want to decorate your Zen garden with, your inner sanctuary, inside yourself and inside your living quarters. And the bottom line, and the fact of the matter at the end of the day, is we are fucking alone. We can have other people in the room with us. We are still alone inside ourselves. And we can't rely on anybody else to give us that peace because they're not there. They are alone too, and they have their own stuff to deal with, and it's not fair for any of us to project our shit onto anybody else. About 15, 20 minutes left. Let's see if I can explain the weirdest and coolest thing that I've ever been through. So the next day, I made it to the end of the day, and I was pretty good. I was just incorporating, I was working over how I felt, how happy I was. Really, really cool when I turned into a frog ninja. Sounds funny to say, but you gotta be able to laugh at it. And it was at the end of the day that I was called to do it again. And this time over 4 grams, back to back with whatever I took the first day. It was a combination of microdoses and whatnot. I didn't specifically calculate. So I was called for another heroic dose. So I got out my crystal ball and I decided that I was going to do, my intention was to tap into the universe, do the wizard thing. I love the wizard thing. Um, work on Reiki, work on, and I mean, I did a lot of healing and a lot of Reiki work and whatnot throughout the other experience as well. And I kept being interrupted after everything was in my system and everything was kicking in, and I was kind of at the point where I couldn't really even stand up. I kept being interrupted. So it was very important for me to, at this point, be alone. So I got off the phone, put the phone down, cleared my mind, and I went back to that little kid being alone, all alone. There was a quiet, there was a still, and something happened where I internally decided I'm not playing anymore. I don't want to play with anybody. I'm not going to play with the Russians. I'm not going to play with the war in Ukraine. I'm not going to play COVID. Because here's the thing, when you stop touching these things, they stop existing. So I'm like, what if I stopped touching everything? What if nothing existed? And I sat in my house, and to me, everything did disappear. There was nothing outside this room that I was in. And then I started questioning. I started to think, and I was contemplating. My full intention at this point was, what am I doing? What am I doing with my everyday actions that will build something tangibly created to give value, that will continue to let me touch things long after I'm gone? That legacy piece, music that goes on, art that goes on, children, something that allows me to keep living. And bit by bit, things all became one thing. I noticed that everything in life is just based off that one center point that we're looking at, and we just go from one point to the next and the next and the next. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense at this point. What happened also didn't make a lot of sense. I was sitting there thinking, I was going over these questions, and I was looking around the room, contemplating how everything has its double. There always has to be another, a male, a female, an up, a down, a left, a right, a floor, a ceiling, a wall, a window. They're not the opposite, but you get my point. And I realized, I came to the actualization, or at least this is what my brain was telling me, that I have not taken a breath in over 5 minutes. And I was looking around my room, and I was just so still, and I was so at peace. I realized that breathing doesn't exist. I realized that time doesn't exist. It only exists if you interact with it and you play into the illusion that it does exist. And I remember at the time I got really excited. I went to text Ashley, and I'm like, Ashley, you can stop breathing and you don't need to breathe and you live just fine. Then I realized that Ashley doesn't exist because I'm alone in the room. Who's Ashley? Ashley's a phone at this point. My daughter is a phone. Everything and everybody around me is a fucking phone. That's not real. They're not physically here with me unless I physically take the actions and the effort to go to them or bring them to me. Unless you can touch it, it's not fucking real. And when I came to this conclusion, time had stopped. And I always have candles going. And every time I looked at the candle, the flame was still and had not moved. And I would look away and I would look back and it would be in a different position, frozen. I'd look away again and I'd look back. Everything was just still framed. And then gravity stopped existing. And I felt with little to no effort or movement, just by looking around the room, that I would float to where I was looking. And then it was also at this point where something clicked off inside my head and I tipped over backwards and I heard that flatline thing in the movies where your heart stops. I'm conscious and I'm laying on the bed and I started to curl up like this. I'm thinking, no, no, no. Let's not play into anything that has to do with death, just in case. Because death doesn't exist unless we allow it to. So I would sit up and I felt fully in control of my body. I felt that I was mentally controlling my heartbeat, that it wouldn't beat unless I told it to. My breathing didn't exist unless I told it to. Movement didn't exist unless I made the physical effort to push off something to move. And what was really cool is I touched my crystal ball, and as I pushed and applied pressure to it, to me, I just kind of melded into the crystal ball, and then I was slumped over and I could see my knee, and then I touched my knee and became one with my knee. And then I could see the floor. Then the floor disappeared, and everything at once became everything else. And I was everywhere, and I was everything. I was every physical element that exists. But that's the thing about us as human beings, is we are. We are heat. We are electricity. We are water. We are earth. We're fire. I don't think we're wood. We have metals in our bodies. It was definitely something. And when I came out of this experience, what really sticks with me is the intention that I'm not playing anymore. Very seriously, I'm not giving my mind, my attention into bullshit. It's so freeing because of just how I've come to understand the actions and consequences. And there is only a action if you create an action, and there is only a consequence if you have also created that action. If you don't create an action, if you stop touching, if you stop interacting. Kind of like that thing when you're a little kid and you have a bully. They say just some things in life you can't ignore. On a medical physical metaphysical plane, it has always been stated through mental alchemy that what we think and what we craft out and what we put into words and what we put into an idea is how we bring things into existence physically by making blueprints and putting wooden nails and whatnot to make a chair, but also the concept that you attract it, that it exists somewhere out there and it will pop into your life, it will pop into your existence by giving it your time and attention. So going forward, I highly encourage everybody to make sure that you are only touching and giving attention to what will help you grow, what will be a safe place for you and your loved ones. That inner sanctuary of peace. We're so programmed to, and I was talking to somebody about this earlier, they wake up every day and they were saying that their family's just so in it, in the news, in the COVID, in the fear. They wake up and they just dive for it and they can't live without it and then they talk about it. And it's that thing they fucking hate. Did you see it yet? If you hate it so much, stop. I'm excited to learn more. I highly encourage everybody to be comfortable working with these medicines. You will have emotional moments where you will detox and you will just cry and be sad. But you will be in a relaxed state of being and you will be able to let it out. And for me, I've always remembered where I am and why I'm there. And any sound that I hear, I can analyze. You know, I'm not hallucinating that's a mouse in a wall. I'm not hallucinating this, that, and the other. That's the thing. When things happen that you can't justify, like time and gravity has stopped, and I am, from what I understand, I'm having an outer body experience, or possibly a near death experience. Terence McKenna said that the mushrooms cannot kill you, but they can make you think that you are dead or have died. And I've spoken to somebody else about this over the last few days as well. Went through something a little bit similar. And the truth is, people have bad experiences because you're not prepared and you're not doing it properly. You need to be in touch with people who have this information, with people who can walk you through it before, possibly during, and then especially after that integration phase where you're just like, holy shit, what just happened to me? When I came to, not came to, when I came out of it, when I was downstairs watching TV at 4 in the morning, because at this point I had already kind of woken up from being out of it for a little bit. I understood how to relax my body at a completely different level. I understood how to relax my vision so that you can see different hues of light around objects, which is kind of the state that your mind goes into when you experience visions. And my ultimate goal is to be able to have shamanic experiences and go through this level of healing, honestly, on my own, through sheer willpower, without any stimulants. One of my intentions. The other thing is that by having that peace of mind that I'm not playing anymore, it gives confidence to situations where people want to fight. And I look back on the arguments I've had in my life, I look back on the shit that I've been through, and it's like I was the instigator. There was something in me I kind of get out, and I felt that by arguing or by saying something mean or getting into it with somebody, that I would feel better. The truth is, you don't. The truth is, I'm not playing anymore. And I acknowledge other people who have that in them, and they may want a confrontation because they can't relax, because they can't heal that trauma. And I'm not playing anymore. I have a lot to do. I have a lot to make. I have things in my life that I've planned and never acted on. And all that matters going forward is what we are doing. What am I doing? Right now, I'm talking to all of you, and I want each and every one of you to be able to take something from what I've said today and use it to heal, to relax, to create an environment for yourself where your body is able to feel safe so that you can relax and you can heal. I've cured myself of migraines through this level of being able to relax, through this level of being able to understand what mental stresses cause headaches and migraines in the first place. Your body can heal anything because you have to stop playing victim. You have to stop playing pain. You have to stop playing, period. Let you know what's good for you. say play it with yourself, but that gets into a different conversation. Make sure that you have what's around you to just be the most positive things that you need to spend your time adequately and make things in the world that will let you touch as many things as you can, as many people as you can, reach as many people, get your message out, share, let other people know that it's okay and that it's safe to work with these medicines and only good will come, even if you have a really shitty trip, because you always feel better afterwards. Further, if you like what I have to say, please share it some more with your friends. Reach out to us, give us a testimony. We get those several times a day, people who are reaching out and letting us know that we've helped them, that our content is monumental in their healing process. And we have new programs coming out soon. Ashley just restructured one, and we're polishing it off now and really excited to be able to share that with you guys going forward. And I will see you all